last night in the course of the things I discussed, I essentially explained that the universe that we are in is a machine that allows us to be connected to the source of our life, which is God. And everything about it, that's all that it is. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's something that Hashem made up and continues to make up every single day while we're here. Every moment of reality being manufactured by God in order to allow us to receive the gift of life. It really is that simple. The universe is not simple. The universe is an extremely complex thing because its job is to form a link of communication between us and something that cannot be perceived in any form or any fashion or any way. It's something really that exists. It's something unbelievable. There's definitely, from its inception, our universe is something miraculous. There's no way to describe what's taking place here. Anybody who contemplates it, anybody who investigates it, is filled with wonder and with awe. And for this reason, and I tried to explain also, one thing I mentioned last night, you see that the fondest and deepest wish of every parent in the world is for their child to be fulfilled and the child to grow. Ask anybody, they say, look, how happy, yes, it's such a Jewish word, how happy is a parent? They're as happy as their saddest child. Have you ever heard that expression? You ever heard that expression? That's the way it is. Everybody knows it. You're a parent, that's it. And you're going to be as happy as your saddest child. Because there's no percentages. What's your percentages on your kid? 50% came out okay. That doesn't work. There's no percentages satisfactory to a mother or to a father. Every child you have is like your fingers and your hands. There's parts of yourself. There's no way to describe it. I try and tell my kids all the time. You know it. Anybody who's had a kid knows this. I would say to my students, I say, what is more your body than your own body? Like a riddle. You know what the answer is? It's your kid. All of a sudden, your arm is walking around the room. It's your foot walking around the other side of it. How can that be? How can you feel something more for something that's not your own body? You know, it's indescribable. Anybody who has a child knows it. You can't figure, what is that? How do you feel that way? That is a nature that God put into us so we can have some understanding of what the bond and relationship is between us and the thing that made us. Am I communicating over here? There's no percentage that works out. And it's worse it's compounded. People who teach or rabbis and teachers know all of a sudden your family becomes extended. And then the people that you teach and responsible for also become part of that. And also your own satisfaction and joy become inextricably tied up with the welfare and joy and happiness of others. It gets bigger. It gets bigger than the nation of Klal Yisrael. All of a sudden you can never quite feel the way you want to feel when someone else is not feeling good or happy. Now once we understand that, and we understand that God made the whole world for this purpose, to allow us to receive the gift of living. But life is not just merely physically having a body that goes. We're talking about, I tried to explain, about an exquisite consciousness and understanding of perception. He's giving us the experience of life. And everything you do about life, when your blood sugar is low, you don't feel right. You're in a bad mood, you don't feel, you haven't slept. All those things are what we're talking about. So we're talking about the Torah and the mitzvahs as an incredible menu, an incredibly detailed program that will yield this consciousness and this experience that we're calling life in the way that God wants us to have it. But the point I want to bring out, that's what we have to understand. We're shocked at the violence, at the extreme nature of the reaction to our behavior. And it's true, no human being can grasp, it's not possible, no human being can grasp the true understanding of why it is commensurate for God to react in the way that God does to our behavior. When we see human suffering on any scale, the final reaction is one of humility and one of faith. We humble our heads. We go, I can explain it. I'll explain to you the Second World War. What are we explaining? Can we explain the understanding of one little girl scratching her knee and feeling pain? I'm in shock often in the modern world. Well, the Holocaust. What, you just wake up? You needed 6 million people to die and to be tortured and to suffer to ask a question? The fact that one single human being ever suffers any amount at all is not something for you to ask about? You need 6 million people to die to ask a question? Boker Tov! Your brains. One person felt bad for 1 minute about anything. We have to understand, how is it that a God that is all-knowing, all-powerful, can allow such a thing to take place? Our response to human suffering, our response to death is one of humility, one of faith. We humble ourselves before God. We understand that the universe is so much bigger than we are, and the one who made it is so much bigger than we are. With all that, because God does put us into the world and does give us the ability to think, and because He does teach us Torah, we do have to try. We have to, within the context of what God taught us, we do try. They say the final analysis, a destruction of a temple, death of thousands, slavery, 2,000 years of suffering that we cannot be described and cannot be appreciated. We're very fortunate today. We're really fortunate that we have actually, I don't know, for the want of a better word, we actually have kosher histories. When I was little, they didn't exist. I don't think there were any. I think the Jewish histories were written by people who were not proper people. They weren't good guys. The famous Jewish histories were written by people who didn't believe in Judaism. They didn't believe in the Torah. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. If you want to know how nice things are today, I think when I was little, it wasn't 100%, but almost. If you found a book in English, it was treif. A Jewish book in English was not an okay book. Not none. But basically, if they were in English, it was a problem. Today, thank God, it's incredible. We have an abundance of genuine and authentic Torah works in English that people can read. It's not the question of English, but in a language and presented in a way that people can have Torah. It's a wonderful thing. But in any case, when I was little, I was given as a gift, I was given a book called The History of the Jews of Poland and Russia. Famous Jewish history. No? Great. One Shabbos day, I pick it up, I begin to read, and all of a sudden I realize, I don't think I'm allowed to read this book on Shabbos. Because if you have a Jewish history written by a person who doesn't believe in the Torah, if you have a Torah person, the history of the Jews of Poland and Russia, there are many incredible and wonderful things that happen. Wonderful mitzvos and Torah events. Really amazingly, in the midst of an exile, a golden age of Torah productivity. So in incredible contrast to the suffering that was taking place. But if a person doesn't believe in the Torah, when they write the history of the Jews of Poland and Russia, it's nothing but a litany of one suffering and one horror after another. You read it, that's all it is. There's nothing there except for one more horrible thing after the next, for 2,000. So when we see that, we say, what is that? So I humbly submit to you that what that is a parent who will do anything to make sure that their child does not miss out on the goodness of life. That's what it really means. At a certain point, what are you going to do? You love your kids? Sure you do. The kid goes, you say, Tati, no, don't go near the fire. It's not good for you. Don't go. The kid goes again and says, don't go near the fire. It's dangerous. Mommy doesn't want you to go there. At a certain point, you say, I'm going to break your arm. Don't do that. What is that? What's happening over there? You love the kid. You will not hurt yourself. That's not happening. I'm not going to do that. So we can understand in our little way, we can understand why the God that made us will turn the world upside down rather than let us miss out on the life and the eternity that God planned for us. I hope I'm communicating. We can't grasp it. We can't. But what we can do is to understand, almost like by reverse photography, we can get a picture of what's taking place. Thank God they moved. For all the years I lived in Yerushalayim, for a long, long time, the divorce court was in a really like an old kind of building, the rabbinic courts. And almost like, in my mind, it's exaggerated, of course, because of the horrible things that were taking place in almost like these catacombs, And I used to call those rooms Gehenna. Purgatory, hell. Because you go into there and you would hear the pain, the anger, the anguish of husbands and wives who had once been husbands and wives, people in love with each other, the most intimate feelings, And there they are with some vitriol, the most horrible, vicious and horrible sayings and screaming. And I couldn't take it. I hated that place. I hated it. I hated every minute of standing there. Every time I walked into that place, my whole body felt pain. And I realized so many times what I was looking at was the reverse, those tenderest, the most wonderful feelings reversed and turned inside out. Instead of all the promise and sweetness of life which we feel when two people are in love. All of a sudden the horror of those things betrayed, frustrated. We could also see here in this history, which I admit we can't grasp it, we can't justify it in human terms. Only with humility and faith in God to know that God is so much bigger and understands. But in a little way, we understand that God is telling us He will not let us lose out. Therefore God will reflect in our world our missing of the point, our missing out on the life that God gave us. I tried to outline for us that the sins that the Gemara describes destroyed the first temple are sins that essentially cut us off from our source and that allow us to undermine the workings of this world. You know, we are good at this. Human beings are good at undermining. We have ways to follow the rules and not follow the rules, and certainly when we don't follow it, we can undermine. There were places, you may not be familiar with this, there were places in Europe that had a custom that if people had a dispute, an unpleasant one, people fought with each other, they would try to make sure that Shabbos time, that it was over, that they made peace. And there were places where the rabbis would demand that when there was a fight between people that they would publicly resolve it. There's a certain place, a guy apparently, said terrible things about his friend Schwartz. And the rabbi demanded that on Friday night, that he get up in front of the whole congregation and that he renege on what he said. The way they spoke, the way of saying, I unsay, I take back what I said, was to say what I said, I didn't say. That's how they said it. I take it back. That's what they said. What the rabbi said to him, he said, listen, you get up in front of everybody, and you tell everybody that what you said about Schwartz, you didn't say. That's the way they said it. His job was to get up and say what I said about Schwartz, I didn't say. To apologize, to take it back. But the guy was so angry. He was so angry, he couldn't let it go. He couldn't get it go. So he got up and he said, but he had to listen to the rabbi. He said, Rabbosai, my friends, what I said about Schwartz, I didn't say? We can do it. We can undermine. We can undermine the exquisite universe that God made for us. So the first temple, it was clear, it actually did those sins that cut them off. All of a sudden, if we're worshiping other things, we stop seeing that God is the source, as I tried to explain last night. We stop seeing God as the source. And therefore, in a situation, when we're presented with another human being, all of a sudden we see that as isolated from the God that made us. Now it's me and you. It's never me and you. It's not me and you. It's God putting me and you together here at this moment. It's God putting you in front of me and me in front of you. But when I worship other things, all of a sudden God is not the source of every moment. Other things are happening, like business. Hey, don't take it personal. It's business. I love that when people say this. You get the people say, don't take this personally. I take everything personally. I'm a person. Don't take it personally. What should I do? What am I, a rock? I should take it rockily? What am I? Don't take it personally. I'm a person. Hey, don't take it personally. That's one. It allows us to isolate, to cut off a moment from the authorship of God. Now I can function. Something else is happening. There's another set of rules over here. There's nothing else happening at any time, except that God is creating that moment. Same thing. Forbidden relations. All of a sudden, I shift God out. He's not looking. There's no significance in our relationships. But there is, because that was the gift that God had to give us. To make life have meaning, God had to infuse our lives with significance. He decreed that it means something. But we can cut ourselves off from it. Murder, that's pretty clear. If every human being is a representative of the understanding that there is a God, if every human being is an image of God, it's pretty obvious. But I cut myself off from that understanding. And God populated the world with millions upon millions upon millions of reminders that there is a God. And I'm busy denying it. That's pretty cool. At that point we can understand why God graphically says to us, the most exquisite machine of communication of the presence of God to human beings, a temple in Yerushalayim, which made it so obvious and so easy to see the presence of God. We can understand why he took it away. And we can understand why he took us away. At some point you got to let people know. If you look in the Rambam, when he discusses fast-pace, he explains that a person who understands that God brings unfortunately difficult times to give us a message so that we can change. We get the point. Imagine you come home one day from work or wherever you are. Unfortunately, there's bandits, robbers in your house. They tie you up. They put you in the closet in the basement. They take what they have to take. They leave. No, you're a little stuck over there. You're tied up. You're in the closet. The kids come home from school. They figure, oh, thank God, this will be good. They'll get me out. They don't hear a thing. They come in. They're screaming, yelling, singing, getting cookies. Oh, blah blah blah. You know what you do? You're stuck in the basement there in the closet. You take your foot. You think, I got an idea. You start to kick the door. Boom, boom, boom. That'll get him. The kids start laughing. Hey, what's that sound? I don't know. Maybe somebody's playing ball. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Let's do something fun. They're playing, bang, bang. They don't get the point. You got to do something to get out of there. Eventually you start to kick the walls. Eventually you get your foot somehow lodged between the pipes. You pull one of the pipes loose, cause a flood. Finally, oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! They come down. It's flooded. Oh, there's mommy. You got to do something to get noticed. The Rambam tells us if we respond to the difficult times, lo aleinu, that God gives, and we do the truth we're supposed to do, he takes them away. But if we don't respond, HaKadosh Baruch Hu continues, makes things more and more severe until we wake up, until we get the message. And one of the things that's so difficult to understand, and I know this, we can be honest about it. If we look at our history in this exile, this very long exile, the Jews have done an incredible job. No nation in the history of the world has lavished love upon God like this nation. In the midst of the greatest difficulties, the greatest, the Jewish people remained faithful to their God. They learned this Torah. They kept Hashem mitzvahs. We did. There's nothing about it. Read the history. It'll melt your heart. It'll melt your heart. There never was a love story greater than this one, for sure. If that's so, then what's happening? And the answer is exactly the Gemara that we discussed last night. Because it says that, in my humble opinion, because it says in the second temple, they were doing everything. Learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, being kind to one another. Doing chesed. It wasn't, we get this impression of everybody was being mean and snarling at each other. That's not what was happening. People were doing the right things. Why was it destroyed? It said because of cynicism that was beinehem, that was among them. The Bina Eitim, I mentioned last night that it's an extra, the words seem to be extra. The Bina Eitim says, you know what it was? It was among them. It was hidden among them. It wasn't blatant. It wasn't something that you saw out and out. Everything looked fine in the outward. But it was there. And you see that that's the way it is. Can you be kind and nice to other people and still have a baseless hatred of other people? The answer is yes, of course you can. We do it all the time. People do it all the time. They bring you into their homes, they feed you, they're wonderful. And they can still put you down. You're busy being Messiah of everybody. Understand? Of course, you got the real thing. Us guys, of course, you know. Let's show a little kindness to those backwards people. It can be there. The disdain, the condescension, it's there. You can do it. One time on the phone with somebody, I was walking with a guy. We're walking, and we're talking Torah. This is amazing. I'm walking, I'm talking Torah with the guy the whole time. What could be nicer than that? That's my favorite thing. We're talking Torah, we're explaining Torah, and then I get to my house, I say goodbye to the person, and I walk in, and all of a sudden I realize I was feeling terrible. I was feeling really bad. I said, what is that? I couldn't feel good. I was having a conversation with Torah. Then I couldn't get it, and I realized, every single thing the person said to me in Torah was to tell me that I'm an idiot. He was telling me with every step, every word that he said. He told me, I'm an idiot, I'm an Amoritz, I'm stupid, that's what he was trying. He was trying to tell me that. Of course I was feeling bad. The very same moment, that's what we're learning. He's telling me how stupid I am. We can do it. You see, lots of ways that we that there's a baseless hatred. That we're busy, and I'll explain you what it is because I'm trying desperately to understand myself and to communicate. If we understand that the source of everything that is good and wonderful about our lives is that connection with God. Like every child wants the love of the mother, the love of the father, all the security and all those good things, and the worst thing in the world is to be cut off from those things. To feel insecure, unloved, unsure. You have to realize that when we treat people in the wrong way, even under the surface, we're cutting them off from life itself, from the connection to God. Very interesting, we greet people. Today, it's quite significant. This is a day we don't go out saying Shalom Aleichem to people. It's quite significant. You walk into the room, somebody says, "Oh, Shalom Aleichem. How are you?" What's the opposite of that? The opposite is somebody walks into a room and you are unaffected. You don't even look up. The person's not there. It's interesting. There's a word that we use throughout in all of our learning. Girsa, or learning, or to be gores, is an interesting word. And in Yeshivas, it has many nuances. A girsa could be a version of the text. Girsa is learning, but girsa is also, a girsa could be, we have this girsa or that girsa, a certain version of the text. There was one version, another version of the text, one rendition, another rendition. And it's interesting in the yeshiva world, when we want to say that you utterly, what's the word you could use to utterly nullify a person? You're not Goris them. Thank you, Rabbi. You're not Goris the guy. This person, which version? He's not a. You're not a version at all. You don't exist. You're not. We have version A, version B, and no version. You're not here. That's how we mavatal. That's how we nullify you. We don't Goris them. So what'd you do? What do you want? You want to not exist? When somebody looks up and responds to you, Shalom Aleichem, you're there. Remember, our existence is quite tenuous. What are we? What are we? If you take the water out of you, I don't think there's much left. You probably put us in a little matchbox. I don't know how much of us is there, right? You take the water out, you start to feel a dish above, right? You take the water out of you, I don't know how much is here after that. We're not that here. So Shalom Aleichem, oh, hey, I'm here. I exist. So the kid comes in, ooh. What's the Ricky? The kid walks into, ooh, look who's here. Well, that never stops. That never stops. Person walks into the room, just think about a simple thing. You didn't look up. You didn't look up. You weren't affected. What do you tell the person? You don't exist. You're not here. It was our job as human beings to be the ones that would communicate the existence of God over and over and over again. Because our existence is meaningless except for the fact that God gives us meaning. I hope I'm communicating. How is it possible that something that's not God will exist? It can only be by virtue of God infusing that existence with meaning, with recognition. We are nothing other than but God recognizes us. There is no us except for that. And every human being was there to enforce, to enact, to reflect that relationship. So what? Here, just not recognize another person? That's pretty clear. Person walks into, continue talking your foreign language that they don't understand. Thank you very much. That's great. How do you feel? You walk into a room, people talking some language you don't speak, blah 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 blah. You kind of, they laugh. You go, what am I laughing at? I don't know. Must be funny. I don't know. Something was funny. You're an idiot. Someone doesn't speak your language. Maybe you want to include them. Let them know what's taking place. You do exist. You have great importance. I don't know if I spoke about it here. I once had to go to one of the outstanding rabbis in Yerushalayim. I'd never been to his house, seen his wife live in the classic Yerushalmi house. It's 2 rooms. It's this room and the other room. That's a classic house. So when I got there, the Rebbitzin is in this room, where the front door is. So I knock on the door, and the Rebbitzin opens the door. And she sees me, she said, oh. She looks at me, I don't have to explain the word. She's so excited that I'm there. Oh my goodness. She looked just like this, like I'm doing. So I was so shocked. I'd never met her before, so I realized she's talking to somebody else. So I turned around. But there's nobody there. I said, she can't be talking to me. Oh, she says, I'm so happy you came, she says. Well, she obviously doesn't know me. So I turned around and said, there's nobody there. Me? She's talking to me. It was true. This is a true story. I said, I'm sorry to bother you. Is it possible? I have a quick question. Is it possible to see the rabbi? She says, she runs to the other room. I don't know what she says his name. She says, look who came, she says to him. I come to the other room. The other room is the other room. There's 2 beds in there. There's the rabbi sitting in his chair. He's got a rickety other chair piled high with svarim, and a little rickety table. He's learning. His wife brings in like I'm the ambassador from I don't know where. You know. He says, oh, he says, sit down. I sit down. I explain to him, look, I'm really sorry to bother him, but I just have to ask him this question. I ask him a question which I'm positive he's been asked 50 billion times. And he says, he says, that's very interesting, he says to me. He explains to me. It's with such excitement. He's only done this a million times before. But he's talking to me like, hey, whoa! Like I came up with it. I got a big breakthrough. The brilliance of even asking the question. Whoa! I walked out of there. I was walking on air. It's the truth. I was walking on air. I don't know what hit me. The answer is what? I'll tell you what hit me, and I'll tell you what happened. The answer is that I've just spoken to two people who are connected to God. Two people whose bond with life and with the Creator had not been compromised and had not been diminished. And therefore, in all of their transactions with me, what was being communicated was the love of God. The validation that God gives to our lives. But the opposite of also. The opposite is the most terrible thing ever. We're busy here, and I started out the simple way. Take a look. The non-recognition is not even active. And look how destructive it is. You know, I have to tell you, I really have to admit, I never studied anything that I didn't love. Everything. God's world is so beautiful. Anything you put your mind to, anything. Hydraulics, anything that you pay attention to, you'll see a revelation of God's wisdom. The Torah is the most essential and our source of life, the highest revelation. But the whole world, everything God made is revealing the grandeur of God. So among the studies of the world that have given me delight, one of them is a study that's fairly modern called linguistics. And in the course of studying those things, there are many things, there are many related studies. At one point I learned about the way people pronounce words, the way people speak. We learn about accents, pronunciation, intonation. They actually have a system of notation where you can, so to speak, you can actually show, like almost like musical notes, to show how people pronounce things. So you can have a notation that shows a certain accent. And intonation is a very great part of the way that we speak. In fact, you'll see when children begin speaking, the first thing they do is the first thing they get is the cadence and intonation of speech. The kid can't say the word, but the kid will start going blah 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 blah. The kid has the rhythm and sounds of speech. And when you pay attention, one of the things you'll find out is that it's very important to speak to children with a rising intonation. Check it out. You say to the kid, hello, good morning. If you speak to kids with a descending intonation, you know what happens? They run away. Try it. Get your little kid. Hello. Good morning. Kid will be out of there in a second. They're not hanging around there. You know, a lot of people sing when they speak. You know, you ever been to Texas? They sing when they talk. You ever been to Texas? How are you today? They sing. You can't do that with a kid. Just the way you speak tells people. So one, in the lack, we can cut a person off and cut ourselves off from the source of life, from God. And then there are things we can do. I tease about it a lot. You're lucky I don't think you have it here, but there's a certain person I call the correction creature. You ever meet these people? I'm sure you don't have it in your shul, but a lot of shuls have this guy. You don't have that. I'm sure you don't have it here. But there's a correction creature. What's the correction creature? These are guys who study. They study the calendar, you understand, or the weekly calendar, whatever it is, and they know all. They memorize all the places. You do say Tachanun this day, or you don't. We do say it here, we don't, and they memorize all this stuff, and they're waiting. They're waiting. You know what I'm talking about? They're waiting for you to do the wrong thing. They're like you can see them if you look. They're kind of in the corner. They're salivating. Waiting for you to do it, and they'll never tell you. You're waiting, and then you start to say, they'll never tell you beforehand. You know what I'm talking about? Only they're waiting. They're waiting. Get you. They're called correction creatures. When I want to make a person to feel wrong, out of place, foreign, that's what happens. We can do it. It doesn't always have to be that blatant. We can do it by parading our superior knowledge or whatever the story is. When people want to make people feel the right way, it's the opposite. I had a great experience, I have to tell you, one of my favorites. I was once when I was little, there was a famous repeating cartoon. I don't know if you know this, in the magazines in the old days, the cartoons, the single frame cartoons with the gag, with the line at the bottom. It didn't start that way. In the old days, the magazines, artists would just submit pictures, and then the staff of the magazine would make up the gags. It wasn't like the artist made up the gag. Artists would just make a picture. Then the magazine would sit there and work on, they'd work on a line, that would work. So you could have the same picture. You could have 50 jokes, 50 different gags. They would all work. So there were famous cartoonists, that would have the same scene over and over again. One famous one, I don't remember the guy. You probably saw it. It's always the same scene. They're in that little living room. The guy's got his newspaper. He's sitting on his thing. The woman's got her book. She's sitting in one of those living room chairs. And the gag could be anything. One of my favorites, she looks up at him and she says, "Excuse me, dear, I wasn't listening. Could you please repeat everything you've said since the day we got married?" Anyway, so one of the classic ones is, in those days, the picture of the extremely wealthy couple was that the couple are alone with no one there, eating at this very long table, extremely long. He is at one end of the table, and she is at the other end of the table, and they're being served, by servants, and everything. They're talking over, communicating over like 3 miles of table between them. That was the picture of the very sophisticated, wealthy person. That was a recurring picture. One time I visited a couple who, God bless them, they were very wealthy, and they were at a table like that. The only thing was that I was eating with them, so rather than the husband being at the north end of the table and the wife at the south, the husband was at the north. I was 3 miles away at the southern tip of the table, and his wife was sitting next to him, at 180 degrees on that side. Okay, that would have been okay. But this was also a very sophisticated household. They were going to serve many courses at this dinner, and there was more silverware on that table. I mean, whatever you've seen, it's nothing compared to what I'm talking about. I'm telling you, there was a phalanx of silverware just in front of the plate. That was enough for 3 meals. Then there was a whole nother one to the left of the plate, a whole nother one to the right of the plate. Now, I did fine for the first thing, because I know you just start with, whatever there. I got the first thing basically okay. But after the second dish, I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what to do next. So I was just kind of sitting there. And the most wonderful thing happened, because the wife turned her head to the side, and the husband, now she didn't see the scene, the husband lifts up a piece of silverware and waves it at me with a twinkle in his eye. And it was the sweetest thing in the world. It was the sweetest thing. And that's really the way it is when people care for each other. Everybody has knowledge of the other personality. It says, right, of course, but it'll be a little, because we're not going to say tachanun. Oh, right, thanks. There's lots of things to do. There's so many ways to let a person know something, not only by telling them, but by including them and never making it even an issue, or allowing the person to remember that they didn't even know about the point. Now, as everybody knows, everybody doesn't know. As everybody knows today, they don't know. They don't know that. They don't have to say that. Welcome, ignorant ones. Allow me to inform you of there's a lot of ways to do things. I mean, inclusive, everybody knows. Everybody's here. It's the sweetest thing in the world. I can minimize those differences, minimize those lacks. Those are wonderful things to do to another person. And you have to realize, I've submitted this to you before. And I mentioned last night, if we understand that baseless hatred means that any time you don't have a mitzvah to hate somebody, that's called without a reason, then all that remains is an obligation to endlessly love everyone. And every time you don't, that's baseless hatred. Every time you don't treat a person in a way that's affirming and loving and confidence giving and difference removing and unsettling, that is baseless hatred. That's what we're talking about. Because that's not the way we're supposed to be related to each other. Every child is supposed to receive all the love in the world. Isn't that correct? Period. And every human being is supposed to receive that. I once heard a very wise woman say something. I never forgot it. She was thinking about it. She said, most people think of, what's the absence of love is hatred. Absence of love makes fear. That's what opposite it makes fear. When you're unloved, you're afraid. We got a lot to be afraid about. We're puny. We're vulnerable. We barely hear. We don't make ourselves. We barely exist. What do you think gives the kid all that confidence? Oh, come, give us a hug. Yeah, how you doing? What do you think gives a kid confidence? You're really here. Whoa, you're good. When I was a kid, I also now, but when I was a kid, I played music. I loved it. And when I was 14 years old, there was a show, actually. It was I don't know if you remember it, but there was a show called the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. And that was it was like a forward. Today they have all these sophisticated things. That was a show where you could apply and you could perform, and then maybe, who knows, something good would happen. So my friend and I, we were 14, and we heard that they're going to have auditions for this show in Washington at the television station. We lived in Baltimore. Now I remember I was 14. Money. We didn't have money. In fact, we didn't even have the equipment to play the music that we wanted to play. But this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was so incredible for us, So we borrowed a bunch of musical equipment, and then we borrowed money, and we basically invested everything that we owned into this chance. And we took a taxi to the bus station. We never took a taxi anywhere ever. That was unthinkable. Let me take a taxi. That's a lot of money. We barely took a bus. In fact, all the time I was growing up, I almost never. If I got the money for a bus, I would never pay it on a bus. What a waste of money. I would walk and do something good with that money. That was my source of income, was my bus money. I wouldn't waste it on a bus. So a taxi was like unthinkable. But we had all this equipment, we had amplifiers, and we had to do it. So we took a taxi to the bus station. And then we took a bus all the way to Washington, and then another taxi from the bus station to the television station. Unbelievable. This is everything we owned. We get there, and I don't want to be pretentious, but sometimes when you do a good job, you don't do a good job. The truth is, that night we were really good. We really were. Sometimes we really were. We just everything was right. We were really, really good. It was me and my friend Victor. But something terrible happened. We had no way of knowing. These people were blatantly, unabashedly, and unashamedly anti-Semites. And they saw us, and they just laughed at us. They just laughed. They didn't laugh at us. They ridiculed us. They mocked us. And we played really good. We were really, really good. But they just laughed at us. Kids with yarmulkes. I don't know if you remember what it's like to be 14 years old. We walked out of there. I think we must have looked like this. I don't know. I think my head was down by my shoes. I was so embarrassed. It's really embarrassing. It's funny because they should have been embarrassed, but I was embarrassed. It's embarrassing. And the truth is, we got out in front, and now, about the insult to injury after all that, and then we're going to pay for the taxi. Go home. We got out there, and this taxi driver was sent directly by God. There's no question about it. He was some character out of some book or some movie, I don't know what. We put our stuff in the trunk and on the seat. We get in there, and he looks, he says, "Ooh." He looks at us and says, "Whoa," he says. "Wait a minute," he says. You look like you're very talented to me," he says. "Oh, no, you got a lot of potentiality. No, I can see you are very talented. You're gonna go far," he says. "You got a lot of potentiality." And the whole way from the TV station down to the bus station with us with our kishkes in our hands. And he goes, "Oh no, you're good. You're gonna go far. You're gonna be good. You got a lot of potentiality." And I look at my friend Victor. We're looking at each other, and tears were pouring down our faces from laughter, from sadness, from joy. We got to the stage where we started laughing. We just chalked it up to experience. We laughed. We laughed. Where is that guy? I wish I could meet that guy again. Where is he? He's in a good place, I'm sure. But what you can do? Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't need that? What could you do for another human being? Here, we have an Aveira, actually. You're not allowed to mischabe b'kolon chaveira, for example. You're not allowed to lift yourself up in the downfall of your friend. You can't build yourself up on what's negative about your friend. The Gaon of Vilna really was uniquely talented. It doesn't take away from the incredible work that he did with what God gave. Sometimes we take away from our great people by attributing such great talents to them, and we understate the incredible sacrifice and work they did to become the people that they were. But the facts are that the Gaon was unique, and from a very young age, he was working very, 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 very hard on becoming the person he was supposed to be. At 5 years old, he was learning his Chumash, learning. And his mother was a good mother. She said, "Listen, your kid, go out and play." She told him, "Go out and play." He'll listen to his mother. So he goes out to play, but he comes back after a short time. What happened? He went out. What are the kids playing that day? They're playing seesaw. You know the game seesaw. They're playing seesaw. So he looked, he decided he can't play. He comes back. His mother said, "What is it?" He said, I can't play that game." She said, "What's wrong with the game?" He said, "If you look at this game, you'll see that the whole principle of the game is that when one person descends, the other person goes up," he said. "And the only way for you to go up in this game is for your colleague to go down." He says, and the Torah doesn't want us. He doesn't want our ascension, doesn't want our success ever to be based on the downfall of our friend. He said, and since the whole principle of this game is based on rising up, on the downfall of our friend, he said, I can't play this game. Wait, who wants that? Do I want to be something? Do I want to rise up on the downfall of my friend? Because it's just a way of burying them, believe me. If it wasn't bad enough, you can make it worse. What do you do? And I often wonder, there's situations, that are difficult. What happens, and it happens sometimes, public speaking is a challenging thing. Some people can do it, some people can't do it. Some people are good one day, bad another day. It's hard. It's not an easy thing. It's hard. It can be very daunting. Pardon me, my father has a story, from the rabbi business. You get used to what you have to do. He one time had to be at a funeral. In America, he used to have the chapels here, So a lot of the way they have it, they'll have the deceased in a casket below, and they'll have the people on a podium that will say eulogies. My father was one time at a funeral. He was sitting in the crowd, and they asked a certain person who really was not accustomed to speaking in general, and certainly not speaking at a funeral. So the poor guy got up. He was so nervous and daunted by the situation, he couldn't collect his thoughts or collect himself. And he's standing there, he looks at the crowd, he looks down at the casket, he looks up again, he can't speak. So he finally starts to blurt something out. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen," he says, "Mrs. Schwartz is dead. No doubt about it." My father, he had to pick his head and walk out of the chapel. The poor guy, it's hard. What do you do? What do you do if it was your turn to speak and the person before you did a really lousy job? What if they were terrible? They were nervous and stumbling and unclear. What do you do now? Just get up there and speak away. All the better. You'll do all the better by contrast, huh? Great. Fantastic. Terrible. What a terrible situation. You don't want to speak at all. How can you go up and do even a passable job if the person's messed things up? Great. It's a nice guy. Go do a good job. Hey, what'd you do? What'd you do? All he did was, by contrast, make this guy look 10 times worse than he already did. Great. That's what you need, huh? What do you do now? Hard problem, huh? Lots of things you can do. Get up and do a bad job? I don't think so. I don't think so. But you could, for real, you could realize that God put that person there for a reason. And you could thought carefully about what the person said and had to say and tried to say. You could understand how that really is the foundation and the clarification of everything that you wanted to say yourself. And you could understand that you never even would have understood what to say had it not been for that person. And you could tell the people that you're so thankful to the person that just spoke, because you didn't even know what you were trying to say until you heard what they had to say. And you could tell them that it's the best day of your life, because you had a breakthrough like you never had before, because you finally understood what was going on because of what that person said. You could. There's lots you can do. It just depends on where you're coming from. There's a lot you can do. And you realize that it's a tragedy for any person ever to suffer, to feel unloved, to feel unwanted, to feel uncomfortable. You got to be careful. I'm sure I've discussed it here, but I'll just bring it up a little bit and you'll see. Anybody who's ever been a good caretaker, you ever been a caretaker? One thing you learn very quickly is that you do your job quietly and get out of there. You know why? Because at a certain point, if you're too present as a caretaker, you become oppressive. You know why? Because with every goodness that you do to the person, you drive home the fact that they need your goodness. With every help that you give to the person, you drive home the fact that they are needy and are in need of your help. Am I communicating? In your kindness, you become oppressive. You're driving home. Oh, let me do that for you. Let me help. Thanks a lot. Thanks, I'm miserable. Thanks. Aren't you feeling good that I've been here to help you? No. I'm feeling terrible that I need the help. I wish I could be on my own, independent. I wish I could take care of myself. Big problem, and that's why you'll see that the Torah makes charity a thing that we hide. We hide it. Because ironically, when it comes to charity, the more blatantly you respond to a person's need, the more you drive home that this person is needy. Okay, sometimes there's no choice. The person's standing there, you got to help them. But we try to not let the person never know we were there. To not even know who it is that we're helping. Why? Not to drive home to someone ever the fact that they are needy. Same thing. So when I help a person, I can do it. Hey, I'm actually stuck. Could you give me a hand? You're actually doing the other person. I have a friend. You want to know? This is a true story. You got to have a little time. There's a true story I'm telling. You know, Hashem should bless us. Hashem should bless us that we should know the beauty of all the people we love while they're alive. The guy came to visit my friend, and he said to him, I want to tell you something about your father. He said, so what is it? He said, your father and I were really good friends all these years. A lot of times we want to go out to eat. Two families, two couples who go out to eat together. So once in a while, your father said to me, let's go out to some restaurant, X or Y. He said it was a very expensive restaurant. And now, your father was, thank God, was a very successful person financially. He said, I'm not. He said, if we were going to that restaurant, it was obvious that I wasn't paying the bill. I don't go to restaurants like that. So we'd go out to this fancy restaurant, we'd eat and order and speak and laugh and enjoy each other's company. Came time for the bill. I love those expensive restaurants. They bring the bill in that little leather wallet. They present it to you like it's some kind of gift. So the waiter puts the thing down on the table there, the bill. I'm not picking up the bill. I can't pay that bill. He said, your father would take the bill. He'd take his wallet out of his pocket, he'd count it out. He said, then your father would turn to me and give me a little jab. Hey, Josh, he'd say, can you help me out? I'm embarrassed. I'm shy $30. I don't know what happened. I must have not looked at my wallet before I left. I'm missing $30. Could you give me a hand? I said, your father wasn't shy $30. Your father was a mensch. He knew that. He knew I can't pay you the bill. I can't participate. And he knows I'm a somebody. Hey, give me a hand, will you? Help me out. You gotta give $30. So your father had the kindness and the love to include me, give me a space, make me a person. I read a lot of books. A lot of books I haven't read, I've had quoted to me. There were books that I can quote to you that I never read, because people quoted me the entire book. Yeah. One of those, don't test me, one of the books, do you know the book All for the Boss, that book? I never read that book. But the entire book's been quoted to me from other people. But anyway, there was a book that was quoted to me, and it's a scene, a guy's crying, and he's calling out to his deceased father. He's crying for his father. He says, Pa, he says, you always said be a mensch, he said. But you made it look so easy, he said. Big thing. What we're talking about is being godly. We're talking about a million things you can do to make another person be secure, to make them love, to make them have a place, to make them have a position. If you don't do it that way, You could be doing kindness to a person. You can feed them and care for them and learn your Torah and do your mitzvahs. But by default, every minute you can be making sure that other people are uncomfortable, estranged, lower, put down. By default, you don't have to say ugly things to do that. You can do it by inference. As you're helping the person, you can do it. Oh, it's yes. I am welcome. And let me inform you of the rituals of the Jews. I know you're Jewish, but I know you have no knowledge of the Jewish tradition. You dunce. That's how you do. In every transaction, we make people feel not just included, but they were there. They were there. You've always been here. Of course you belong. In fact, you belong here more than I do. I don't know what I'm doing here. When we teach another person Torah, and I'm dead serious, this is the attitude. It's not that, oh, let me inform you. The attitude is, you know what? I don't know why I learned this and you didn't. Because I'm an idiot. Because you could do things like this that I can't even dream of. For the life of me, the only reason I can imagine that I learned this Torah must be to give me the privilege of passing it on to you. Because clearly you can do things that I can't even imagine with it. That's the attitude of every person in Torah. Must be that because I don't have the ability, it must be because I don't have the ability to truly appreciate this Torah, God at least gave me the privilege of passing it on to somebody who can do something with it. Am I communicating over here? If you ever got to do anything for anybody, that was your greatest privilege, not your position. You were lucky to be able to pass anything on to anybody. Take a look at what I'm talking about. I can't talk forever. I can actually, but I'm not gonna. Don't tempt me. I'm from a family of talkers. But when your feeling is that way, then your sensitivity is that way. At every moment you don't let anybody feel out of place. Nobody's uncomfortable. Nobody's unknowledgeable. Nobody's unknowing. All of a sudden everybody's included and beyond included. They belong there. And what you're doing is, if I haven't been clear enough, instead of the opposite, and that's what we have to be careful about, and if I haven't been clear enough, what are we doing to continue? It's obvious what we're doing to continue. If we keep allowing and doing the things that allow and cause others to be cut off from that love and security and confidence that the closeness to God is supposed to give them, and that we, as the representatives of the presence of God in this world, the reflectors, the announcers of the presence of God in this world, are supposed to be giving, then we're continuing what took place. That's exactly that God turned the base of English upside down. Because what's the point? What is the point? It's stupid. What's the point? What's the point? Blah 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 blah. Great, great. What'd you do for anybody? You shechted more animals? You sprinkled more blood? The Beis Hamikdash was a powerful machine to communicate the presence of God and to give godliness to human beings at every single second. What good is it if we undermine its purpose? So God responds with a very graphic and gross response. We don't see that today. We remain isolated from each other, isolated from the God that made us. It's not your privilege to be part of a sect of Judaism. It's your punishment. It's not your privilege to be part of a sect. It's your punishment. It's my punishment. It's not supposed to be that. It was our job to be overflowing and communicating in the same way that the world that God made makes it easier for us to see and to receive from God. Our very existence was meant to be that. Our relationship with the world at large, and all the more so with other Jewish people. I do not subscribe to the belief that a person has to have had the same experience to have empathy with another person's experience. I don't agree. I don't agree that you have to have gone through it to have empathy. You ever been driving? And you can drive for miles for a long time and your mind's all over the place, you know? You can think about all kinds of things, and an hour later you first remember that, for the first time in an hour you remember that you're in the car driving. You know that experience? You know what I'm talking about? I've never had that experience. Because I don't drive. You don't have to have experienced it to have empathy. You just have to be human. You just have to be human. God gave you the ability. You know what love means. You know what acceptance means. You know what confidence means. I have a million examples. But you don't need them. You don't need them. Because God gave each one of us, He gave each one of us insight and understanding, to have the sensitivity. And you can see it. You can see it out of the corner of your eye. You can hear it in a person's voice. You can hear it in the way the person pauses. You know when a person is feeling good or feeling bad. We can do nothing about it. We can do negative things, and we can do very positive things. And the Torah obligates us to do those things. I'll speak about it later, but the Torah obligates us to do those things at all times. And for all times. It forbids us not to do those things. It's continuing because we're continuing. When I'm on the level of the people who lost the Beis HaMikdash, it doesn't matter. Because at our level, we have what to do. Look at our beautiful world. Look at our beautiful Jewish world. We do chesed. This is not a world that doesn't do chesed. There's a world that does do chesed. There's a world that does learn Torah. There's a world that does do mitzvahs. God bless us, everyone. But we can easily miss out. Because after all is said and done, God wanted to give us life. And it was our job to enhance that, to perpetuate it, and never, God forbid, to minimize it. If we take it to heart, we feel it, then we're going to know what to do.